What would you do if the person you secretly loved was about to marry someone who would destroy her? Would you stay silent and watch her walk down the aisle toward heartbreak? Or would you risk everything, your job, your dignity, your heart, to tell her the truth? Marcus Thompson had 17 minutes to make that decision. 17 minutes before the wedding march would begin. 17 minutes before his boss, the woman he had silently loved for 3 years, would marry a man who had been lying to her from the very first day. But here's what makes this story different from any love story you've ever heard. Marcus wasn't some wealthy businessman with nothing to lose. He was a single father of 2, working as a personal assistant, living paycheck to paycheck, and he had discovered something that morning that changed everything. Something that would either save her life or destroy his own. Let me take you back to where this all began, 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days before that wedding morning. Marcus Thompson had never planned to become a personal assistant. In another life, he had been a promising architect, working for one of Chicago's most prestigious firms, designing buildings that would touch the sky. He had a beautiful wife named Denise, a cozy apartment in Lincoln Park, and dreams that stretched as far as the horizon. Then, in the span of 6 months, everything collapsed. First came the layoffs when the economy crashed. Then came the diagnosis, stage 3 breast cancer. Denise fought with everything she had, but the cancer was relentless. Marcus watched helplessly as the woman he loved faded away, as their savings evaporated into medical bills, as their apartment was traded for a cramped 2-bedroom in a part of the city where police sirens served as lullabies. Denise passed away on a rainy Tuesday in April, leaving Marcus alone with their 2 children, 7-year-old Maya and 4-year-old Jordan. She had gripped his hand in those final moments, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't let grief make you bitter, Marcus. Promise me you'll love again. Promise me you'll show our children that even after loss, there can be joy." He had promised, but in his heart, he couldn't imagine ever feeling joy again. For 6 months after the funeral, Marcus survived on autopilot. He worked temporary jobs, construction, warehouse shifts, anything that would help him keep the lights on. His mother, Gladys, moved in to help with the children, but she was 73 years old with arthritis in both knees. Marcus knew he needed something more stable, something with regular hours that would allow him to be present for Maya and Jordan. That's when he saw the job posting, personal assistant needed for CEO of Hamilton Enterprises. No experience necessary. Must be organized, discreet, and able to handle high-pressure situations. Marcus almost scrolled past it. A personal assistant? That was a job for recent college graduates, wasn't it? Not for a 34-year-old widower with calloused hands and a heart full of grief. But the salary gave him pause. $75,000 a year, plus benefits. That was more than he had made as a junior architect. It would mean stable hours, health insurance for the kids, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to breathe again. He submitted his application, expecting nothing. 3 days later, his phone rang. Victoria Hamilton was nothing like Marcus had expected. When he walked into the sleek office on the 42nd floor of Hamilton Tower, he had prepared himself to meet the typical corporate executive, cold, distant, treating employees like interchangeable parts in a machine. What he found instead was a 31-year-old woman with warm brown eyes, natural hair styled in elegant locks, and a smile that seemed to carry both strength and sadness in equal measure. "Mr. Thompson," she said, rising from behind her desk to shake his hand. "Please, sit down. Can I get you some water? Coffee?" "I'm fine, thank you," Marcus replied, caught off guard by her warmth. Victoria settled back into her chair and studied his resume. "You were an architect." "Yes, ma'am. And now you're applying to be a personal assistant." She looked up, her eyes searching his face. "Help me understand that journey." Most interviewers would have asked the question with skepticism or condescension. Victoria asked it with genuine curiosity, as if she truly wanted to understand his story. So Marcus told her. He told her about the layoffs, about Denise, about watching his wife's casket being lowered into the ground while his children clung to his legs, too young to fully understand what was happening but old enough to feel the devastation. "I need stability," he said finally. "I have 2 children who have already lost their mother. They can't afford to have a father who's chasing jobs across the city, working nights, never knowing if next month's rent will be covered. I know I'm overqualified in some ways and underqualified in others. But I promise you this, if you give me this chance, I will give you everything I have." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. "I lost my mother when I was 15. Breast cancer. I know exactly what your children are feeling right now." She paused, composing herself. "I also know what it means to have someone show up for you, day after day, even when everything seems hopeless. That's what saved me." She stood up and extended her hand. "The job is yours, Mr. Thompson. Can you start Monday?" The first year was a blur of learning curves and small victories. Marcus quickly discovered that being Victoria Hamilton's assistant was nothing like he had imagined. Yes, there were the expected tasks, managing her calendar, fielding phone calls, organizing meetings. But there was so much more beneath the surface. Victoria was a workaholic, arriving before dawn and leaving long after sunset. She survived on coffee and determination, often forgetting to eat until Marcus started leaving sandwiches on her desk during afternoon meetings. She had inherited Hamilton Enterprises from her father, who had passed away just 2 years before Marcus was hired. The weight of that responsibility hung heavy on her shoulders. "My father built this company from nothing," she told Marcus one evening, when they were the only 2 people left in the office. "He was the son of sharecroppers who couldn't read or write. He put himself through college, then business school, and created something that employs over 4,000 people. Do you know what that means?" Marcus nodded slowly. "It means 4,000 families are counting on you." "Exactly." Victoria rubbed her temples, exhaustion etched into her features. "Every decision I make could change their lives. That's not something I take lightly." Over time, Marcus began to understand that Victoria's tireless work ethic came from something deeper than ambition. It came from love for her father's legacy, love for the people who depended on the company, and perhaps, a love she didn't know how to give to herself. He also began to notice other things. The way she would stare out the window sometimes, lost in thoughts she never shared. The way she would always ask about Maya and Jordan, remembering their names, their interests, even their favorite foods. The way she would deflect whenever anyone asked about her personal life, as if she had built walls so high that even she couldn't see over them. Marcus told himself that his observations were simply part of being a good assistant. He was attentive to his boss's needs, that was his job. But somewhere in that first year, in the quiet moments between tasks, he began to realize that his attention to Victoria Hamilton had become something more than professional. And that terrified him. Maya and Jordan adored Miss Victoria long before they ever met her. It started with the birthday presents. On Maya's 8th birthday, Marcus arrived at work to find a beautifully wrapped package on his desk. "What's this?" he asked. Victoria looked up from her computer with a casual shrug. "I remembered you mentioning that Maya loves art. There's a watercolor set in there, professional grade. I figured every artist needs to start somewhere." Marcus protested that she didn't have to do that, but Victoria waved him off. "It's nothing. Children deserve to have their passions encouraged." The following month, a package arrived for Jordan, a set of building blocks designed by an architect to teach children about spatial reasoning. "You mentioned he likes to build things," Victoria said when Marcus tried to thank her. "Like father, like son, I imagine." These small gestures accumulated over time, and Maya and Jordan began to ask about the mysterious woman who sent them such thoughtful gifts. Marcus found himself talking about Victoria at the dinner table, sharing stories about her kindness, her intelligence, her quiet generosity. She sounds nice, Daddy, Maya said one evening. Is she pretty? Marcus nearly choked on his water. She's my boss, sweetheart. That's not really relevant. Maya exchanged a knowing look with her grandmother that made Marcus deeply uncomfortable. The first time Victoria met the children in person was entirely accidental. It was a Saturday afternoon in Marcus's second year as her assistant. A major crisis had erupted with one of the company's overseas suppliers, and Victoria needed documents from Marcus's home office immediately. Rather than asking him to come in, she insisted on picking them up herself. It's my day with the kids, Marcus said. My mother is visiting her sister. I really can't. Then I'll come to you, Victoria interrupted. Text me your address. Marcus spent the next 30 minutes frantically cleaning the apartment, which was no match for the chaos of a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old on a Saturday. When the doorbell rang, Maya answered before Marcus could stop her. Are you Miss Victoria? Maya asked, her eyes wide. Victoria, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, smiled warmly. I am. And you must be Maya, the artist. Your father tells me you're very talented. Maya beamed and grabbed Victoria's hand. Come see my paintings. I used the watercolors you sent me. Before Marcus could intervene, his daughter had dragged his boss into their modest living room, where Jordan was constructing an elaborate tower from his building blocks. Daddy, look! Miss Victoria is here. Jordan shouted, abandoning his construction to wrap his arms around Victoria's legs. Marcus watched in stunned silence as Victoria knelt down to examine Jordan's tower, asking thoughtful questions about his design choices. She praised Maya's artwork with genuine enthusiasm, engaging with the children as if she had known them for years. When she finally stood to leave, Victoria's eyes were glistening. You have wonderful children, Marcus, she said softly. You should be very proud. I am, he replied. Every single day. Their eyes met and held for a moment too long. Then Victoria cleared her throat, took the documents, and hurried out the door. Marcus stood frozen in the doorway, his heart pounding in a way it hadn't since Denise. That night, after the children were asleep, he sat alone in his bedroom and stared at the ceiling. I'm in trouble, Denise, he whispered to the darkness. I think I'm falling for my boss. By the middle of the second year, Marcus had accepted two truths about his situation. First, he was irrevocably in love with Victoria Hamilton. Not infatuation, not attraction, love. The kind that made him want to protect her from anything that might cause her pain. The kind that made his heart ache when she worked herself to exhaustion, when she smiled at something he said, when she looked at him with those warm brown eyes. Second, he could never tell her. Victoria was a billionaire CEO, and he was her assistant. She deserved someone who could match her world, someone with wealth, status, influence. What could he offer her? A cramped apartment, 2 children who weren't hers, and a heart still scarred by grief. So Marcus buried his feelings deep, hiding them behind professionalism and loyalty. He became even better at his job, anticipating Victoria's needs before she expressed them, protecting her schedule, filtering out the vultures who tried to use her for her money or connections. If he couldn't love her openly, he would love her in the only way he could, by being indispensable. Preston Winthrop III entered Victoria's life like a summer storm, sudden, dramatic, and impossible to ignore. He appeared at a charity gala in the spring of Marcus's 3rd year. Preston was everything Marcus was not: wealthy, connected, effortlessly charming. His family owned one of the largest investment firms on the East Coast, and his smile had graced the covers of magazines more times than Marcus could count. When he approached Victoria that evening, Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Victoria Hamilton," Preston said, extending his hand. "I've been wanting to meet you for years. Your father was a legend, and you're proving yourself to be every bit his equal." Victoria smiled, that polite, professional smile that Marcus had seen her give to hundreds of businessmen. But as the evening progressed, her smile began to change. It became warmer, more genuine. Marcus told himself it was nothing. Victoria met wealthy, charming men all the time. This one would fade into obscurity like all the others. Except he didn't. Preston sent flowers the next day. Then dinner invitations. Then a weekend trip to Paris that Victoria declined but spent hours talking about. "He's different, Marcus," she said one afternoon, a dreamy quality in her voice that Marcus had never heard before. "He actually listens when I talk. He understands the pressure I'm under." Marcus nodded, maintaining his professional mask even as his heart cracked. "That's wonderful, Miss Hamilton. You deserve someone who sees you." The courtship progressed with frightening speed. Within 3 months, Victoria and Preston were the talk of the business world, the Hamilton heiress and the Winthrop prince. Photographers followed them everywhere. Society pages chronicled their every date, every vacation, every romantic gesture. Marcus watched it all from the sidelines, a silent witness to his own heartbreak. He tried to be happy for her, he truly did. Victoria seemed lighter these days, smiling more often, working fewer late nights. If Preston made her happy, then Marcus should support that. That was what love meant, wasn't it? Wanting the best for someone, even when it cost you everything. But something nagged at him. Small things that didn't quite add up. Like the way Preston sometimes looked at Victoria when she wasn't watching, a calculating gleam that seemed at odds with his declarations of love. Or the phone calls he would take in other rooms, returning with explanations that were just slightly too detailed. Or the way his charm would flicker off and on, as if controlled by a switch. Marcus dismissed these observations as jealousy. He was looking for reasons to dislike Preston because he wanted to believe that the man wasn't good enough for Victoria. That was unfair to both of them. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The proposal came 6 months after that first meeting. Preston arranged a rooftop dinner overlooking the Chicago skyline, complete with a string quartet and hundreds of roses. Marcus knew about it only because he had been asked to adjust Victoria's schedule for the evening. The next morning, Victoria arrived at the office wearing a diamond ring the size of a small planet. "He proposed," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I said yes." Marcus stood frozen, coffee cup suspended halfway to his lips. "Congratulations, Miss Hamilton. That's wonderful news." Victoria's smile faltered slightly. "Are you okay? You seem—" "I'm fine," Marcus said quickly. "Just surprised. It happened fast." "I know." Victoria looked down at her ring, and for a moment, Marcus thought he saw a shadow of doubt cross her face. "But sometimes when you know, you know. Right?" Marcus forced a smile that felt like broken glass on his lips. "Right. Absolutely." The wedding planning consumed the next several months. Victoria hired an army of planners, designers, and coordinators, but she still relied heavily on Marcus for the details that mattered. He found himself researching florists, sampling cakes, and comparing venues, all while pretending that each task didn't feel like hammering nails into his own coffin. His mother noticed the change in him. "You've lost weight," Gladys said one evening, studying him with the piercing gaze that only mothers possess. "You're not sleeping. And you haven't smiled, really smiled, in weeks. What's going on, baby?" Marcus considered lying, but he had never been able to fool his mother. "She's getting married, Mama." "Victoria. She's getting married." Gladys was quiet for a long moment. "And you love her?" It wasn't a question. Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. "Does she know?" "How could she?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "I'm her assistant. I'm a widower with 2 kids and barely enough money to keep the lights on. What could I possibly offer a woman like her?" Gladys reached out and took her son's hands. "You could offer her honesty. You could offer her a man who would love her for who she is, not for what she has. You could offer her a family that would welcome her with open arms. She paused. But more importantly, does this Preston make her happy? Truly happy? Marcus thought about the question. He thought about the way Victoria sometimes looked at Preston when he wasn't performing for the cameras, the slight confusion in her eyes, as if she was trying to convince herself of something she didn't quite feel. I don't know, he admitted. I honestly don't know. The rehearsal dinner was held 2 nights before the wedding. It was a lavish affair at one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants, attended by over 200 guests. Marcus was there in his capacity as Victoria's assistant, managing the logistics and putting out the small fires that inevitably arose at such events. That's when he overheard the conversation that changed everything. He was walking toward the kitchen to address a catering issue when he passed a partially open door. Preston's voice stopped him cold. Just a few more days, and we'll have access to everything. The old man was smart, tying her inheritance to that ridiculous morality clause. But once we're married, none of that matters. Marcus pressed himself against the wall, heart pounding. Another voice responded, an older man that Marcus didn't recognize. And you're sure she doesn't suspect? Victoria? Preston laughed. She's so desperate to be loved that she'll believe anything I tell her. The lonely little rich girl, playing at being CEO. Once I have control of Hamilton Enterprises, I'll run it properly. Liquidate the underperforming divisions, cut the dead weight. What about her? What about her? Preston's voice dripped with contempt. A quiet divorce in a year or 2. She'll be humiliated, of course, but she'll still have enough money to live on. I'm not completely heartless. And the prenuptial agreement? She refused to sign one. Can you believe it? Her lawyers begged her, but she said she didn't want to start her marriage with distrust. Preston laughed again. Her father must be rolling in his grave. Marcus's vision went red at the edges. His hands shook as he fought the urge to burst into that room.